There are houses you can walk past 1,000 times without ever noticing. Silent, ordinary, forgotten. And then there are places like this. In the summer of 2012, a man named Ethan Collins rented a remote countryside home in Windermere, England. To him, it was just another cheap rental. To locals, it was something else entirely. They called it Black Valley House, an ivy-strangled relic with windows that seemed to look back at you. Within weeks, Ethan would emerge from that house bloodied, hysterical, and babbling about voices in the dark. The police investigation would uncover tunnels, strange carvings, and evidence of rituals that defied explanation. And even after the case was closed, Ethan swore the thing inside hadn't stayed behind. This is the chilling, unresolved case of Black Valley House. Ethan moved in during June, thinking only of peace and solitude for his photography project. But the first night, the house introduced itself. A sound rose from beneath the floorboards. Steady, deliberate, like metal tapping against stone. Ethan traced it to the cellar, its heavy door groaning as he opened it. Inside, nothing but crates and rusted tools. The sound stopped the moment the light flickered on, only to start again once the bulb went dark. There were no pipes down there, no machinery, no logical source. Locals would later insist this was the house's way of testing him. That first whisper of something buried deep inside its walls. But Ethan shrugged it off until the shadows began to move. By the third night, Ethan felt it, eyes on him. As he typed at his laptop, a tall shape slid across the warped glass of the living room window. A human silhouette. He ran outside immediately, camera in hand. But the garden was empty. No prints in the soil. No sign of life. The following night, it escalated. Scratching sounds crawled across the window panes. A whisper, low, female, murmured in a language he couldn't place. When Ethan looked, the shadow was there again, this time at his bedroom window. Terrified, he photographed the distorted glass. What he captured still chills investigators to this day. A warped face staring back, stretched and twisted, as though screaming from the other side. Experts dismissed it as flaws in the old glass, but Ethan knew what he saw, and soon he would hear it speak. On the sixth night, Ethan's fear turned personal. It was past 2 a.m. when a whisper seeped through the floorboards. Not the wind, not imagination. a voice, soft, female, pleading, "Help me." He stumbled from bed, recorder in hand, and crept to the cellar. Every step tightened the knot in his chest. The voice grew clearer. "Help me, please." Ethan called out, "Who's there?" Silence. Then the reply, broken, frantic, "Don't let him out." The cellar bulb exploded overhead, plunging him into pitch black. And in that darkness came a new sound, scraping, dragging, circling, something heavy moving across the stone floor, just beyond the flashlight's reach. The whisper returned, louder now, cracking through the silence. "He's awake." Ethan bolted, barricading the cellar door with a chair. The next morning, he played the recording. The woman's whisper was there, but layered beneath it was another voice, deeper, guttural, and it wasn't begging. It was laughing. Ethan's paranoia grew, but when he spoke to locals, their reactions only deepened the terror. An elderly neighbor admitted that no one stayed in the house for long. Some tenants fled in days. Others vanished without a trace. One woman swore she heard a baby crying from the woods behind the house every night for years. Another spoke of Elizabeth Wheeler, the last documented resident, who disappeared in 1873 after townsfolk whispered she was involved in forbidden practices. Official records confirmed nothing, but whispers about rituals, sacrifices, and secret societies clung to Black Valley House like rot. Ethan realized he hadn't simply rented a home. He had stepped into a story locals refused to tell out loud. And he was about to find out why. Driven by equal parts dread and determination, Ethan returned to the cellar with tools. Knocking along the eastern wall, he heard it. A hollow echo. A hidden space. He smashed through stone until his hands blistered. Behind the wall yawned a narrow tunnel, damp and ice cold. Ethan descended with his flashlight. At the end, a chamber waited. On a rotten wooden table lay melted candles and scraps of parchment etched with Latin incantations. Carvings marked the walls. Human figures twisted in ritual, their faces deformed into screams. The temperature plummeted. His breath fogged. And then, right at his ear, a whisper. Not distant, not imagined. "Stay with me. An invisible weight crushed his chest. He gasped, barely able to stand, before fleeing the chamber and sealing the cellar. But the truth was clear. This wasn't just a haunting. The house itself was a prison. Something had been sealed away, and Ethan had broken it open. By July 3rd, Ethan was unraveling, exhausted, haunted, but desperate to prove what he'd uncovered. He rigged cameras, audio recorders, even motion sensors. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the lights buzzed violently. Then came the scream, raw, inhuman, shaking the walls and windows. A shadow streaked across the room. Ethan turned and froze. She was there, the woman in a tattered white dress, standing in the corner. Her long black hair veiled most of her face, but what showed was worse than anything he'd imagined. Her eyes were gone. Only black sockets gaped, swallowing the light, dripping with shadows like bleeding ink. Ethan's camera failed. Dead. The figure didn't move, but her presence pressed down on him, crushing the air from his lungs. He staggered to the door. Locked. Windows sealed. The house itself trapping him like prey. Then the whisper brushed his ear, colder than ice. "Stay." The figure advanced, her empty sockets weeping darkness. Ethan smashed a chair through the window, tearing his arms on the glass as he dove into the night. Behind him, as he ran into the forest, he swore he heard her laughter. Low, endless. At dawn, a passing driver found Ethan collapsed on a country road, bleeding and delirious. He babbled about voices, shadows, and a woman with no eyes. Police investigated Black Valley House the same day. What they found was undeniable. The broken wall, the tunnel, the underground chamber with carvings and remnants of rituals. But the recordings were useless, all corrupted. Cameras filled with static, audio reduced to white noise, except for one faint detail, a woman humming a lullaby. The case was marked unresolved. Locals clung to their stories. Elizabeth Wheeler, forbidden rites, a curse running deeper than memory. But nothing explained why the house kept swallowing tenants. Nothing explained what Ethan had unleashed. He never returned to Windermere. He never picked up his camera again. In London, he lived quietly, refusing interviews, except one. When asked if the entity remained in the house, he whispered 3 words that still echo in the case file. No. She followed. Black Valley House was supposed to be forgotten stone and rotting timber. But Ethan Collins uncovered something that refused to stay buried. If his testimony is true, the whispers, the shadows, the eyeless figure, they weren't bound to those walls. They were waiting for anyone who dared to disturb them. and maybe they still are. So if you ever find yourself in Windermere, standing at the edge of the woods where that ivy-strangled house waits, remember Ethan's story. And if, through the silence, you hear your name whispered, don't answer.